we're okay to start. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Haslett's Capital Improvement Advisory Committee meeting. Today's date is February 28th, 2023. The time is 6:32 p.m. and we do have a quorum present. And let's see, citizens participation or comment cards. Nobody filled anything out this evening. So moving on to our consent agenda, agenda item 3.1, approval of our November 29th regular meeting minutes. Any discussion on the meeting minutes?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Yeah, there's a motion to accept the November 29th meeting minutes as written. Is there a second? Motion been seconded. All in favor? Motion passes. Oh, anybody against? Anybody abstain? Okay, motion passes. Okay, next is discuss, consider, and act on a recommendation to the City Council regarding the Haslett Capital Improvements Advisory Committee Water and Sewer Impact Fee Biannual Report. And are you going to be speaking to that? All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Chairman, committee, good evening. I am back. My name is Roman Boitsoff. I'm with Belchef and Associates, city engineer for City of Haslett. I am here to present our routine semi-annual update on the progress of the impact fee program, the current program that the city has in place right now. That was adopted originally in 2018, and then later in 2021, the sanitary sewer portion of the program was revised. In the report that you have in front of you, essentially you have a staff communication memo that we put together to convey the contents of this report, and provide you with the update of the current impact fee program that we are working on, and provide city recommendation on as a consequent action of today's report presentation. Essentially, you have 5 supporting documents that are contained in this report, and the document number 1 summarizes collections for the second half of the previous fiscal year, 2021/22. It's a list, 2-page list of all the building permits that have been issued and related sewer and water impact fees that have been collected. And that's based on the data that was provided by Building Inspection Department. The next document, document 2, essentially provides a comparison. I think if you scroll back a few more, James. Coming back. That's the second one right there. So that's the second one, yes. So the first one basically summarizes the amount of building permits that was issued, along with the meter and sewer connection services that were approved. And the corresponding fees that were collected. And this summary basically indicates here's the actual water and sewer customers growth, and it shows you how it compares to the projections that were adopted as part of those 2018 and 2021 plans. And the summary, the sewer projections are pretty close to what the actual growth has been experienced, but the water has quite a significant difference. Based on this, to date, over the last 4 full years, the city has issued almost 40% more of the water connections than what the study projected. And I did a little bit of quick research to see where this discrepancy is coming from. And the best I can tell, the engineer who put together the current impact fee program that's in place didn't account for that many, that large of a size of irrigation meters that primarily industrial development has been requesting. Because those larger irrigation meters account for a whole lot more meter equivalent connections in comparison to the typical residential house. But, and we're making a note of all that as we're working through our impact fee program update right now. So we're going to do our best, and we're going to pay a little more attention, obviously, to make sure that that issue gets addressed with this new update. Ultimately, we want to be as accurate as possible in our projections. Once ago, it's just a guess at the end of the day, but we still want to do our best to project the growth as accurate as possible, obviously. So we'll note that as we move forward. So next document, supported document 3, that's the summary of the impact fee fund operations. And this information in here is provided by the Financial Services Department. Essentially, it shows you that over the last half year of the previous fiscal year, from April to September 30th, the city has collected $344,000 in impact fee revenue and $257,000 in sewer impact fee revenue. Now, after all the expenses, such as transfers to water sewer debt service and primarily a lot of reimbursements that were given back to the developers, the net income is $284 for the water impact fees and $71,000 for the sewer impact. So in total, as of September 30th, the impact fee total balance stood at just a little bit shy of $3 million. And the supporting document 4 summarizes the list of the projects as defined by current adopted and 10-year capital improvement plan for water and sewer, which were essentially developed as part of the current 2018-21 impact fee program. Obviously, as discussed before and brought to your attention, a lot of these projects on this list have been re-evaluated with this impact fee program update, but we have verified and the staff has agreed that the highlighted projects should remain on this capital improvement list, and they are the higher priority projects. And these are the projects that staff recommends using the current impact fee fund balance funds. Till point time when we finalize our master plans, our water sewer master plans, which essentially help us develop the 10-year capital improvement plans, and we'll come up with a final list of necessary critical projects that has to be implemented in the period of the next 10 years. We suggest that the funds would be only appropriated towards these highlighted projects on this list for now. And then as a bonus, supporting document number 5, I put together a schedule of remaining steps necessary to complete and put in place the new updated impact fee program. Now, this is a tentative or preliminary schedule. Obviously, there could be a lot of things that can come up along the way that could prolong the process or they could shorten the process. But in just this, it shows you the three groups. I should say the actions are grouped under three categories. The engineering department that's responsible for the advisory committee and the city council. You know, it has three different colors for each. And as you say, so right now, the staff has been working on developing land use assumptions, which include population projections, and that translate into future water and sewer system demands. And simultaneously, we've been working on finalizing the water and sewer master plans, which essentially will help us to produce the 10-year capital improvement plans for water and sewer. So that's number one step. The code, the chapter 395 of the local government code requires you a two-step process for impact fee implementation. Step number one, you have to develop your land use assumptions in your capital improvement plans. You have to consult with the advisory committee, which is you. And once the advisory committee approves those assumptions in the plans, and the council, city council, have to hold a public hearing to discuss the proposed assumptions and solicit public input. Once that public hearing is held, then we move on to step number two, which is us, the engineering, going back and taking those assumptions, capital improvement plans, and finalizing our impact fee study, actual report, everything. We calculate the fee, and then we come back to you. So most likely, so the way I set the schedule up is that we're going to come back here in 6 months or less. I was trying to time it with our next regular CIAC meeting, which is scheduled for July as of right now, but I know we shifted everything about a month. So that's why I'm showing the CIAC action to take place in July or August, sometime July, August. I will be back to present you with the assumptions, demand system projections, water sewer master plan, and a 10-year capital improvement plans. And then, based on your feedback, we will recommend for city council to move forward with publishing the public hearing notice. And then within 30 days, we're going to have to hold that first public hearing meeting. And then after that, when we go away and complete our internal step 2 work process for the finalizing the actual report and calculating the fee, I will come back to you. So most likely it's probably going to be less than 2 months after that, the public hearing, the first public hearing notice happens. We might have to have a special meeting, a CIC meeting, to review those results, and then we'll move on to step number 2, which is the second public hearing. And if everything goes well at that second public hearing, we finalize the report, and a new impact fee ordinance will be adopted, setting the new fees, and then adopting the new capital improvement plan. So we hope to complete this process fully by end of this calendar year. Now, if for some reason there's some input received from the public, and we have to go back and revise the report and come back and have a secondary meeting, a third meeting, obviously that's going to prolong the process. But that's the step-by-step process that's required by the code outlined here in front of you. And in addition to the semi-annual report, you also should have in your packets a recommendation letter that we drafted for the chairman to consider, to approve, to be provided. That's the one, yes, you got it. That's the one, that's the recommendation letter that would come from you, from the committee chairman to the city council, essentially, meeting the required code requirements, stating we have completed this report, we have reviewed the collections and operations of the fund, we received this impact fee program update, and here's our recommendation to city council, which is essentially approve this report and direct the city staff to continue to work on updating the impact fee program. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very, very much for going through the details of all that. Any questions? I'll let you go first.
Roman?
Yes.
So on the document 2.
Okay.
So the actual MUE growth, the delta, primarily the large industrial meter for the water versus the estimated MUE growth.
It's most likely a combination of residential, non-residential connections, water connections. But if we look at the sewer essentially is a very good representation of the individual water connections of the system, as far as single family and individual businesses go. Because typically when you request an irrigation meter, you don't have a sewer, right?
So the estimated was done by prior engineer.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So going forward, 22, 23, and forward, you guys are taking a much closer look at estimated growth based on land use plans, et cetera.
Yes. I'm looking at the current development rate, what areas is left, just to remind you, the current impact fee program was assuming a 15,000 plus population built out, and we know very well it's not even going to get close to 10,000.
Correct.
Going to revise that to consider, current economic cycles and everything. That rate of development will also slow down most likely. So we're going to try to predict the future as best as we can, but most likely.
I mean, it's always an estimate. I understand
Sure,
that. Yeah, been there, done that. So,
Right.
but I'm just saying that maybe for others that look at this thing, the 258.2 or 285.6, that came up with a number and decided that looked like a good number. I mean, to plug something forward like that, kind of, I wouldn't do it. So look a little closer. I know you guys look closer at that. So you explain the on document 3. So the total balance 29,48,707. That's 21-22 money, right? That's through fiscal year.
Yes, that's total balance.
That's total balance. Yeah, through the end of September.
Yeah, so most likely it's higher as we speak today.
But it is now, yeah, because we haven't
We've been
anything
collecting,
added to
yes.
that. Yeah, I don't understand. What is and you may not have the answer, collection of Fort Worth water impact fees pass-through payments are not included.
To simplify this reporting to you, what City of Hasta does is City of Hasta collects water impact fee on behalf of the City of Fort Worth and forwards it on to them. So if you look at the books, when building permit is issued and the fees are collected, an impact fee for City of Fort Worth is also collected by the City of Hasta. So essentially, we can show that as part of your revenue and then show it as an expense sent to the City of Fort Worth.
The dollar in and a dollar out?
Yeah, it's just pass through.
Okay.
So we're just
So it doesn't matter.
omitting that pass through on this reporting just to simplify things.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yes.
impact the bottom line.
yes, but we felt like it was appropriate to note it on. No, it does not affect the bottom line. That's correct.
You know, once again.
Yes.
So on document 4, can you define eligible cost up at the top?
Okay, that has to do with part of the process that you go through when you calculate the impact fee. For example, you construct a elevated water storage tank today, and it's going to have part of its capacity, and that tank most likely is going to be utilized by the existing growth that already happened. Say half of that tank was built to meet the demands that are already in existence. But then you only have half of that tank left to meet the future demands of the new development that's yet to come. For that reason, the applicable fee for the impact fee moving forward is only a portion of that available half, because not the entire half of that tank might be utilized over the next 10 years. So we have to do the best we can to come up with the utilization of individual infrastructure assets, try to capture the growth of the development that's going to utilize part of that infrastructure, that pipeline. So we know that the pipeline will have enough capacity to support 3,000 more homes, but we know most likely over the next 10 years, only 1,000 more homes can be built. So only a third of that capacity that was built into this project is eligible for this 10-year study period. So only a portion, as you can see, always an eligible cost, most likely almost every time is going to be lesser than the total cost of the project. Because not the entire project capacity is going to be taken up by the developer over the next year.
Okay, another question. So, on your estimated cost, I assume those are current engineers' estimates?
These costs were, most of the costs that are not highlighted are taken directly from the previous studies, current studies that have been adopted.
So,
but
the highlighted one. So
but
project,
highlighted,
project
yes.
2 and 3 for the
We
existing
updated
pumps.
those.
Those are updated.
Yes, we did
So-
our
so-
best to update them with present dollar.
Okay, so the highlighted ones that you guys are recommended moving forward with, using the funds you have, those are current engineering estimates.
Yes.
All right, very good. Where's that pressure reducing valve station on project 5?
It will be right at Haslett Parkway and Harmon Road.
Yep.
There is.
Go-
I
go
can
ahead
give
and
you as
finish
much detail as you like about that location.
Just a
How
minute.
we-
He's got a question.
So
Okay.
just as a follow-up on the cost estimate, so when you update this plan and you look at the duration of time it's gonna take to build out this different, when you look at the cost of inflation on those projects that are further out,
Yes, we do. We
Yeah.
do present dollar cost estimates, and then we'll look potentially. That's why we put there should be a date on here when we expect this project to be completed. So I
Yeah.
would inflate that number to a power of 7 times 1.3, whatever the inflation factor today is. 7.
The 2027 is not current dollars. Those are
Yes.
prorate. Those are with an
Yes.
inflation factor bill.
Yeah. Well, going back to this first highlighted project, the pump project,
Yeah.
we're showing here to be completed this year, and we're purchasing these pumps, obviously, any day. So we feel pretty good about that. And yeah, I guess we really don't have anything beyond year 24. Because once again, next year, we're going to have a new capital improvement plan, new costs, new project list. So we didn't go
Yeah.
beyond that. I think on the sewer side, we're showing a few here. But for purposes of this reporting, I probably should have just highlighted, because we know very well those projects are not going to get touched.
Which ones?
Project number 5, 6, and 8
For-
under
in
the sewer project.
Sewer
Yes.
project. Yeah, right. Yeah, those are off. That's pretty tough. to protect
And once again, I
2027.
want to stress that the whole goal of this update is come up with a new list.
So where'd you say that the pressure reducing valve is Harmon and
Haslett Parkway, that's under construction currently. Yeah, with the Haslett Parkway, there was a 12-inch water main installed all the way along the thoroughfare.
Yeah.
And that generally was going to be the divide between the upper and lower pressure. So everything north of Haslett Parkway is the lower water system pressure point. Everything south is up. So to feed to the lower pressure point from the upper, we were going to originally place the valve right there on Haslett Parkway. But after finding out certain
What?
Some issues that would potentially have to put it there, we decided to relocate the location a little further north along Harmon Road, but it's generally going to be there. We're going to keep the previous plan that City of Haslett had in place, water master plan, was calling for that entire new 12-inch line along Haslett Parkway to remain on the lower pressure plane. But we're going to put a pressure reducing valve on the other side of it to keep that line now on the upper pressure plane. You'll get a more efficient system and better fire flow protection for development along that parkway. So with that in thought, we revised the location that we previously planned for it to be in the Haslett Parkway right away. We just shifted just outside of it along Harmon Parkway.
Which way?
To the north.
Back to the north?
Yeah, the vault is going to be built to the north.
Okay. How's the Laterra elevated tank play into our 200-foot tall needle?
Yeah, it's on the upper pressure plane, so it's going to be directly fed from the South Pumps, FM 156 South Pump Station, and Harmon as well, yes.
I think about 85 feet of top.
There's a lot of head loss we're experiencing right now.
It's an awful
Trying
lot.
to fill it up, and that's why it doesn't stay full a lot. So that pressure reducing, by not the pressure reducing valve, but actually putting the new 12-inch water line in service and keeping it in the upper pressure plane should substantially help the pressure, the dynamic head losses, and help to fill this tank more efficiently. But nothing is going to compare to until a point in time when we bring the secondary line through the Pearl track, the 12-inch extension along through Laterra, John Day Road, Tower.
Off of Blue Mountain?
Yes.
Because I
Now
mean, there's
going
a
north, yes.
12-inch run.
Yes. And we're trying to, there is no connection, 12-inch connection between 156 and John Day Road, but what we're planning on is utilize multiple 8-inch lines through Northland Heights up to Black Road. And I can show you all that on a master plan that we're working on. That's where we are right now. We're working on models. We analyzing right now is that this week we're running various scenarios to identify system needs during existing demands, project 10-year demands, ultimate demands. We're comparing those.
I think that's on him. Somebody else said it.
WS on, I'm sorry.
Debt service? Debt
Okay, it's
payment.
it's essentially there's a $75,000 debt payment that city makes twice a year on previous bonds that were taken out.
The bonds that got city sold to do projects in the past, they have to pay their bill. They have to pay it back. They got to pay the bill. Unfortunately.
Yeah, loan payment that's been
It's a
made on
loan
some
payment.
money that were borrowed to, luckily to build one of these impact fee eligible projects.
Yeah.
Because any projects, any money that's spent on replacing existing infrastructure that doesn't provide extra capacity for new development, not impact the eligible. So there's a lot more loans that were taken out over the years by the city to do repair of the existing facilities, but it's not eligible. Okay. Um, um, no, they will continue because the development agreement set that for the entire subdivision. And actually,
For all the build out?
yes, for Latera, yes. Well, actually, there's essentially no impact. So the city agreed to collect a reduced amount of impact fees, but then that exact same amount is given back to the developer. So there is no net proceeds from Latera. Yeah, after many working discussions that we had internally as a staff and everything, obviously looking at the system closely, it was just yes, both. Okay. Yes, and I think that was the thought process when the development agreement was put in place, is that the developer actually participated in some offsite improvements. Well, you can do, in many instances, you would do both. You would collect impact fees, and also you would have offsite improvements that the developer would also be responsible for. But you can obviously you can waive one or the other. It's always the council decision. In that case, the impact fees essentially were waived, but the developer still funded offsite improvements, the water tower, and partial funds for the pump station improvements.
Maybe you can't answer. There been any additional negotiation on the cost share for upgrading the pump station between the city and the developer?
I believe the amount has been agreed on and settled.
What?
I believe the amount, the participation amount, has been agreed on by the city and the developer and has been settled.
Okay.
I believe the developer has made that payment in full.
As opposed to at one time it was dropped a couple of pumps off.
Original agreement was kind of convoluted, and it was just saying that the developer is responsible for X amount of pumps to be put in place. Well, it's kind of hard to say, well, how much is that going to cost?
Right.
You know, you really should be responsible for a fixed amount of cost of improvements. It's not just going and buying a pump and dropping it off.
No, I mean, there's a whole,
So when we're
there's
saying,
everything about motor control station.
So we went back and forth, the city went back and forth with the developer and agreed on a amount that everybody felt somewhat comfortable was a reasonable amount of contribution.
I just know that Mike Anderson brought that point up some time ago, talking about that particular pump station. So I'm glad to hear that cooler heads got together and talked about a reasonable cost.
Yeah, I think we started down here. Developer was going to give X amount of money, but the city improved the situation, and
you guys are comfortable with
it could always be
best
better,
you
but
can. I say best you can.
yes.
But that's not going to be a cheap project. I know.
No, but it's an important one.
It's important, but it's going to be costly. Yeah, I'll move that the CIAC recommend to City Council that the impact fee fund balance be used toward eligible projects highlighted on the current 10-year CIP, and the city staff continue to work on updating the 2023 impact fee program.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Any opposed? And our next regular
It'll be July or August. Oh, scared me. You scared Doreen. She jumped out of her chair over here.
That's not a problem, right? Isn't it good to know that table you put together was used red? How I figured out that it was 40 built up there.
What are you talking about?
In the back for the existing project. Put that first together a table. So what percentage of development built out of the
Oh.
permissible number of lots. So from that, you got less.
Oh, that's up here. Yeah.
And that's what I.
Whatever their deal was. Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Haslett's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Today's date is February 28th, 2023. The time is 6:30 p.m. and we do have a quorum present. Oh, what did I say? 7:09 p.m. Sorry, I'm reading and flipping papers at the same time, so my apologies. Time is 7:09 p.m. per this clock, anyway. And we do have a quorum present. Okay, 1 second while I make sure I'm getting my stuff lined up here. All right, so items of community interest. Saturday, May 6th is our general election. And the positions that are open for election are the mayor, place 1 and place 4. And let's see, we've got voting is going to be held from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the 6th of May. And the current list of candidates for positions are Mr. Halsey and Ms. Hilborn for mayor, Mr. Ricketts and Morgan Iyer for place 2, and Hector, Nahara, and Ruthie Dew for place 4. So be sure to set time aside on your calendar that day to go vote. And then on Friday, March 17th, there is a Carter Blood Drive bus that's going to be parked out by the Haslett Library, and they'll be there from 1 to 4 p.m. on the 17th of March. So if you can, stop by and give blood. And then Haslett still has a lot of great employment opportunities. We've got a Parks and Grounds maintenance worker position, a staff accountant, a water maintenance worker 1, and a water maintenance 2 worker position available, and you can find out more about those opportunities by visiting haslett.org. Moving on to our consent agenda, approval of the February 27th, 2023 Special Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as written.
Okay, there's a motion to approve as written, and is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion been second, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on, public hearings and action items. Discuss, consider, and act on a recommendation to the City Council amending Chapter 8, Article 4.08, short-term rentals pertaining to short-term rentals, amending Chapter 14, Exhibit A, the zoning ordinance of the City of Haslett, Texas, by amending a portion of Section 7.3.3, commercial uses, to modify the definition of lodging facilities to include short-term rentals by amending Table 4.1-1, Table of Allowed Uses, to prohibit the operation of short-term rentals in certain zoning districts by amending Table 5.5-1, Off-Street Parking Schedule A, to establish minimum parking requirements for short-term rentals, and by amending Appendix A, Fee Schedule, Article 7.0, Development Fees, to amend the short-term rental registration fee. And we're going to begin with our staff presentation. And I need a breath.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if we can get through this then while you're getting a breath. There's several things going on here. First off, for short-term rentals, it's making sure that they get registered within the city, and then also limits on what you can and cannot do. You know, if you've been listening to the news lately, there's been a lot of problems with short-term rentals across the Metroplex. And some cities, including Plano, are getting ready to eliminate them altogether. What's happening is people are renting units, and then they just turn them into a party house, trash them, and go on. And that's what we do not want to have happen. You know, everybody has the right to rent their property. You just can't say this is just going to be owner occupied and that's it. But in this particular ordinance, the owner has to be living there, and then he also has to register it. It has to be inspected by our building services department, and then people are going to be notified within 300 feet that there's a short-term rental registered piece of property. And on that notice, there'll be a number that they can call to make complaints to it. And then, furthermore, you know, there's limitations on parking, number of, you know, people per bedroom that's allowed, and there will be sales tax collected, hotel taxes collected as part of this ordinance, and also there's also a large section if there's complaints that the mayor can revoke their application almost immediately, and so that's basically the basis of this. It's the shore up what we have now, clean up some of the definitions, and give the authority to the mayor to take action if necessary. And if there's appeals to those actions, it would go to the city council for appeal. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Okay, I have a question. So Doreen wants to turn her house into a short-term rental. What does she do?
She needs to go see Mr. Thedford at his office to start off with and register that her property as being a short-term rental property.
Okay, so anybody within the city limits, in any house in the city limits? That's what I'm asking. I'm asking, what the intent here?
There are a lot of people who rent.
So that was my okay.
You can like you can have a 5 you're staying in one of them.
Yeah.
Tenants ones coming in the weekend.
All right, so, well, all right, so, just out of curiosity. All right, so, bring him up. I still. So, the reason I'm asking that, so curious, is I live in the Meadow. So we're in the city limits. We are in the process of trying to adopt new bylaws and covenants. And a question has come up on rental property. Can we limit rental, long-term, short-term, whatever, in the subdivision? Our attorney has told us yes. And I'm just wondering, is that necessary for us to even do? Is this is going to pertain to any resident within the city limits?
The answer would mixed use. So there's 3 different places. They're not allowed.
So that's the question then, and so residential one, R1, residential district, short-term rentals are not even allowed per city ordinance.
It's very limited.
Which, okay, which means good. That's good. No, I understand that. I understand that. This is short-term. This is the party
Yeah.
house thing.
This is basically saying we really don't want party houses in town.
Yeah, I understand. So, I mean, if I wanted to
It's not
lease, if I lease my house out to a family, and because I'm moving to Arizona for a while, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, but I'm still responsible for that house. But I can't do what?
You can't turn it into basically a hotel.
Okay,
Or
so
Airbnb,
come and
yeah.
go, come and go, come and
Yeah.
go. I sold we sold my father-in-law's house in California, 2 miles from Disneyland. The people that bought it told us they were going to live there. Not so much. It was a rental property for Disney. So okay, so short-term rental. Okay.
So when you say that, it's send this letter, the whole section,
Not allowed. You know, here's the thing, and the reason why you can do these ordinances like this, and it's that ordinance methodology that's used on a lot of different types of uses that you really don't want in your city, but you have to allow for everything. And so if somebody gets a piece of property zoned multifamily, they can do it, but that doesn't mean you're ever going to get a piece of property zoned multifamily. So it virtually, and a lot of cities will put them in some place where the only thing that's there is a public facility, like a water tower or a water treatment plant, and the cities are not going to sell them. And so, but if for some odd reason they decide to sell a water tower, then yeah, you can get it rezoned, then you can do something. That's an extreme example.
I can show you one that was turned into a house along the coast in California.
Yeah.
Guy bought it, turned it into the water.
Well,
Okay.
I saw one the other day that I thought was unique. It was a water tower that turned upside down in sort of a barrel. They turned that into a living quarters as an Airbnb. People have done some strange things,
Cut the tank.
but they still have to meet inspections and codes. And all.
All right.
without a permit.
Well, I'm sure if they there's consequences in here that Mr. Thedford, first of all, if he finds out, it says it's illegal to do that.
Correct.
But if they do, then this man back here is going to go out there and give them a citation and tell them they need to cease and desist that activity. Well, usually at the beginning of these ordinances, there's fines that are spelled out.
There are fines.
Yeah, they usually a violation is $2,000. Each day constitutes a violation. Some other ordinances is 500, some are 1,000.
But the point is, there are fines. There are fines. So in other words, like that keep and rather than issue citation, you got to start the month.
Yeah, in cases like this, usually the goal of the city is not to collect fines, it's to come in compliance. And
I saw the application fee and the inspection fee, but I didn't see and maybe I overlooked it, there was the penalty fee.
$2,000. It's under section 9, at the very last. It says any person, firm, partnership, corporation, or other entity violating any provision contained in this ordinance shall, upon conviction, not more than $2,000 each day this deemed a separate offense. So it's in there.
Is that 4.09 or?
What you have in yours is a red line version of all the different things. When it goes through the council and kind of put in a form of ordinance, it will be.
Do you see that anywhere?
It's not in the red line version.
No,
Okay, no wonder I didn't see it. All right, well,
these are just marked up.
okay.
With any zoning change, any violation like it, it's just the $2,000. So that's what Mike was referring.
Yeah.
$2,000 a day is a lot of money. That's when the attorneys get involved. That's when you just turn it over to them. Say, attorney, go after them.
Do we have the authority to turn it over? Ability to turn it over? It's good.
It will get their attention.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion? Any more questions? Is there a motion?
How do you want that?
Yeah, the motion could be as simple as saying that we recommend city council approval agenda item 5A as written.
Yeah, they call it a public hearing.
So I'll make a motion to recommend to city council that they approve public hearing action item number 5A, amending Chapter 8, Article 4.08, short-term rentals, and the rest of it.
Okay, there's a motion to recommend to City Council approval of agenda item 5A as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on, agenda item 5B. Discuss, consider, and act on a recommendation to City Council amending Chapter 14 zoning, Section 5.3.4 of Haslett Code of Ordinances to add standards and regulations for residential fencing construction in the Old Town Core and Old Town Extension zoning districts. We'll begin with our staff presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner, members of the board. This item is an ordinance amending Chapter 14 zoning, Section 5.3.4 of the Haslett Code of Ordinances. The purpose of this amendment is to establish the fencing types and construction standards of residential fencing within the Old Town Core and Old Town Expansion zoning districts. Just a little bit of background of what this is. Some time ago, we had a request for a fence in Old Town. We went into the zoning district or of the zoning ordinance, and there was actually nothing there. It was kind of silent on fencing standards. So we, as the DRC, the Development Review Committee, we met on February 7th to discuss topics establishing some standard, basic standards relating to the type, size, materials, and colors of fencing. Following standards were discussed and have been outlined in the attached red line document for review. You do have those standards in front of you. There are two main categories of privacy or of fencing here. We are dealing with standard fences, and then we also have wooden privacy fences. The standard fences is essentially the front street-facing fences, and they're limited to two options: decorative steel and split rail wood construction. Those would be a maximum of 3 feet in height and no less than 50% of transparency from the front. We do have some examples there on the board. There'll also be the natural wood stain colors for wood fences and painted and powder coated for steel fences. The other category is the wooden privacy fences. These would be primarily in the rear yard. The privacy fences shall be vertical, chemically treated, board on board cedar slats with a cedar top cap. Number two, the horizontal members should be attached to steel posts with a minimum 2 foot embedment in concrete. Steel posts shall not be visible from the street. If in any case they are visible from the street, they shall be boxed in using the same materials of the fence. Be happy to entertain any questions if anybody has anything.
So there won't be any fences like the pickets where they have the slat where people now they face that out, the wrong side should be the other way, right? They won't be allowed to use that here?
Right. So with a privacy fence, you can't orient the steel post towards the street. They've got to be within the inside of your property, so it cannot be seen from the street.
I thought it offered them the option to cover, if those posts were visible from the
Right.
street, to cover them, to encase
Right.
them.
Yeah, you can encase those with light materials of the fence, so they'll be boxed in. Correct. Correct. And that's actually the same standard we have throughout our city with all privacy fences. Is the posts cannot be facing the street; they've got to be within your property. Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct.
And just one thing to note, fences aren't required. This is if you're going to put a fence in,
Correct.
then it needs to meet the standard.
Okay, any other questions? Or Motion?
Public hearing too?
You gonna read? It does.
Thank you for the advisement. At this time, we're going to open a public hearing for agenda item 5B. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 5B? Recognizing that no one stepped forward in the room, we will close the public hearing and we will continue discussion.
I'd like to make a recommendation to city council that they approve the zoning, chapter 14 zoning Old Town Fence Amendment changes as stated in agenda item number 5B.
Okay, there's a motion to recommend approval to city council of agenda item 5B as written. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been seconded. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on. Agenda item 5C, discuss, consider, and act on a recommendation to City Council amending Article 4, Table 4.1-1, and subsections 4.2.5 and 4.2.6 of Chapter 14 of the Haslett City Code of Ordinances to establish surface parking lots for commercial motor vehicles as allowable uses on industrial zoning properties. And we will begin with our staff presentation.
Chairman and members of the commission, this was brought forward because we had a property owner who wanted to put a parking lot in an industrial area for trucks. And so we started looking at the use chart, and parking for trucks is not in there. The only place where we had commercial parking was in the general commercial district. And so it was not very well defined what vehicles and types of vehicles could go into the commercial district, the GC district. And so we want to address both issues. One of them is defining under commercial uses automobiles and motorcycles, which would be pickups, cars, motorcycles as being in a commercial parking lot. But when it came to industrial areas, we wanted to, if you're going to have a parking lot for trucks, tractor trailers on a short-term basis, in other words, if somebody lives in town and they want to park their truck somewhere and then go home for a couple days or take a vacation, they'd have some place to park it other than somewhere where we really didn't want to see a bunch of truck parking, along Blue Mound Road, which we recently had some down there where we had an agreement with them, and then we asked them to take them off, and they did so. But if you don't have land use control, it makes it really difficult. And so what we did, we put this ordinance together and defined that yes, you can do truck parking on a temporary basis, and that's why there's a time frame in here. You just can't park a truck out there and just leave it out there forever. There's a 30-day limit on that because we didn't really want it to be a long-term parking situation. But just, as you come into town, you could park your vehicle, get in your car, go home, then come back when you're ready to go and go, rather than driving through the town, through Haslett, and then parking somewhere where we really don't want them to park. Because people try to park them everywhere. We try to restrict them, keep them off, especially off residential areas. We want to keep them in the industrial area if we can. That was the purpose behind this ordinance. And there are several areas in town that are zoned industrial that I think are probably will be good places for these if you approve it as a use. But that'll be up to this board to make those kind of recommendations.
All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 5C? Okay, recognizing no one came forward in the room, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to discussion. So I'm going to start because I have a real problem with more truck parking in industrial areas. I just think that given the amount of traffic that our residents already experience, the number of times they have to sit at light cycles waiting for trucks to get out of the way, to put concrete down over large areas of our city and just cover our roads with vehicle trips coming in to pick up trailers, drop trailers off, swap for other local sites where those trucks are likely going to go, creates just a further burden on our community. And I am completely against creating that use in the industrial areas. If it was more in line with the airport facilities, I think that, to me, that makes more sense. I am completely aligned with the changes to the general commercial as it's been written in here. So I just want to make my opinion on that clear. I just don't think there's any reason we should do that. So I guess can we separate the two if we wanted to this evening? Could we separate the two and make a recommendation to approve the changes to the general commercial and leave the industrial changes unchanged?
Absolutely, you can do that. And you can even, if you don't like the industrial, but you want to limit it to the airport development zone, you could do that also. Make it more stringent, so it has to be, which would make it more closer to 35 rather than even closer into residential areas. So that'd be an option also. So there are options that you could do. You could also tag on a spatial use permit to it too, because that makes it more anything more restrictive you can do.
So where said that there are areas around town where that sort of facility might.
Well, I'll just mention two of them that I know of, and one of them we talked about in Development Review Committee. Oh, it must have been 8 months ago. There's a little sliver of a tract just west of the Amazon facility, and they'll be hard pressed to ever put a building there. And so you have a piece of land that might be good for truck parking right there, right next to the Amazon facility, where you have a sea of truck parking anyway. Another one is on a site that this board actually approved a site plan for on Harmon Road, just south of the first tract, because the first tract's owned by Fort Worth. But there's another tract just south of Westport Parkway that's like 27 acres that has a big easement going across it diagonally, and they had a small warehouse, and the rest of it was parking. And those people have actually come and actually asked if they could do it there. And of course, we said we really can't do that because the ordinance doesn't support it at this time.
That southwest corner of
It's a southwest corner
of Harmon and Westport Park.
Yeah, the one tract removed.
But that is not in the airport facility, correct?
It is.
It is in the airport
It
facility?
is. It's in that. It's not in the AF zoning, but it's in the airport development zone.
One track further to the south.
Yes.
remember
I
on that
actually
corner-
have an exhibit that shows that on the next item we have. If you want me to go ahead and pull it up.
Yeah, so please, could you differentiate between the airport facilities and then the other definition or description you provided?
Yeah,
Is that the football shape you're talking, or?
Well, it's not. James, could you turn the screen over to me? If the tract I'm talking about, in this particular screen, everything in blue is owned by Fort Worth.
They own that corner right there, Westport.
They own the hard corner, both sides of it.
didn't we had somebody came through with a preliminary plan
This is the area
on
you
that,
had- you had a
on that,
site plan track, right?
we did, we had,
Yeah.
that,
This is the track they wanna do it on. Big easement. Diag- But if you look at the, zoning map, look at a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So it comes up here, jogs over. But that actually included. So if you wanted to just limit this area. Like I did, I wasn't planning. Yes, that's the zoning classification. Yeah. But the limits of development, airport development.
so,
Well, it was developed in Alliance Airport, but it wasn't even that location. I'm gonna go up to a map that was even clearer. Just you can see that diagonal there below was the airport. But it changed on point to come up Harmon Road. If it wasn't for that change, we wouldn't have Caraway. I actually have no idea. It was changed. This map here. I have it up for a particular reason on the next shows history on the area, but that's where it used to be. I've heard some rumors that it actually probably needs to be modified again. But that's not where the line is now, according to all the official records. Official records is the line. Probably less. It may move. There's no certainty in it, but I've just heard people say, oh, maybe it ought to be moved again. There's nothing in the works. Not going to really affect much development. But I took an in-depth look at the airport overlays, all the different angles you have to go up from the runway. Not really going to affect once you get 1,050 foot away from the center line runway, it goes up to 150 foot. Not many buildings in cities that go. Matter of fact, when you go down to the hotel on 35 with a slope of 34 to 1, it's up to 206 feet off the hotel. How high you could be, and that hotel's not near the there should be some kind of sales tax, rental tax that yeah. I don't think it's going to diminish the quality of life. I think what it will do is keep all the trucks close to 35. Yeah. Step one. Yeah, the Ella helped a lot. No, I'm sure that as our staff drives by there, our code enforcement, his code enforcement officers driving the whole city pretty much every day the way it is. It's one of those things where, after a while, you'll say, that truck, I think it's been there a long time. No, it's an industrial. No, it's not. It's by definition. There's a definition in here that states what it is, what's considered.
So basically all I'm hearing, pro is somebody that lives in the city, needs to park his rig over there for a couple of days or a week, just comes over here, gets his car, or his wife picks him up, takes him home.
Yeah, I would hope it's not people from Fort Worth or Sendero Ranch that's
How
parking
would we,
there.
but we wouldn't know.
We wouldn't.
No, so it could be anybody. It's just a convenient place to go park the rig rather than on the side of the road or in front of your house.
Yeah. And all I've done is presented a way that it could be done, but if this commission doesn't want that, that is fine with me. Well, it's not zoned that. I would never put apartments. Yeah, I noticed it's not there. Why don't we do this just to clarify it, that you're recommending approval of basically the other commercial uses, surface parking lots in the GC on that part of the table, and you're gonna deny the other in the industrial parking.
I'll second.
Moving on. 10 out of 5.
Chairman and members of the commission, you've seen most of my slides already, but I wanted to go back in history a little bit. This is a zoning map from 2008, which I was able to come up with. And there is a I-35 overlay district, which comes up here like this. And then as you go down south, there's a little bit over here on the southeast corner of Caraway, where that commercial is. And of course, over here to the east, it's outside the city limits, so there's no jurisdiction for zoning. And when you go back and start looking at the zoning ordinance, there's an I-35 overlay in terms of signage and how signage is to be handled, and it's different than the rest of the city, except that district has been removed. If you look at this map at the legend, there were 10 different overlay districts that were included. You can see a couple of them right here. There's one that was, following Hazlet Parkway, and then there was all kinds of them going up and down 156. This over here, this map here shows the proposed limits of the overlay zone, which takes in all the area along 35 until you get down to Hazlet Parkway. And then it jumps over here just west of Harmon Road and takes in a tract right over here and right over here. The reason why we came up with this line is if you look at the master land use plan on the east side of the exhibit, that line follows the floodplain and includes all the commercial property that faces out onto towards 35 or in the commercial district. And one other thing I just wanted to point out, and this is the ownership of the area that's owned by Fort Worth. So I don't see a lot of big commercial activities happening in here. But this is the kind of signs that were in, that this is actually, all this information here is in the current ordinance. It shows what kind of signs in the I-35W overlay that you were looking at. And that is signs that are 35 foot high, 15 foot maximum width, and you could have them double-sided. But if you do the mathematics, 15 by 35 is 525 square feet. So that's just, one side, one facing one and one the other way. But when you have a shopping center that maybe somebody would put all these parcels together, and if you have like some things out front, and then you have a area shopping behind in one of these little areas like this, you're going to need some signage for those people. But you want something that's attractive. You don't want a pole sign and it looks like a billboard out there, but something narrow but tall enough to really guide the future development of those areas, those pods. And so that's what this ordinance is doing, is actually re-identifying this area, since our ordinance has maybe inadvertently taken it out. Mm-hmm. To hire? Well, 35 foot. Yeah. So something that I was going to mention on later on in our thing about future agenda items. One of them is a site that's going to be coming in right here on this corner. And they're proposing a 35 foot high sign. and, not a pull sign. It'll have, this is what it needs to look like right here. I can tell you, they're fronting Hazlitt Parkway and Harmon Road. It would be this track right here on this exhibit. Okay. It just so happens when you're going over this area of the service road, this area is a little bit higher. Well, actually quite a bit higher than here. And so, you know, a 35-foot high sign, you're going to be able to see it, you know, from this road, from the height of it. They want to put a sign right here.
Where?
Right there. Right on the northeast corner.
So,
Well, I'll just give you some background. They've already submitted a site plan and a zoning request for that tract, and it's a QT. Okay. So you'll probably see a Q and a T up there. That's probably. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I went ahead and pulled this up. This is what's called out in the ordinance, right there. I think it's attractive. You know, it's similar materials than what the building is going to be built out of. And this is what I would push for, is something like that along that area. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's the reason for where that line is on this drawing here. It's following the floodplain, and it's sort of a demarcation in between, the, you know, the everything else to the west and the commercial district that's on 30.
Okay. Well, let me draw us in a little bit. I think I need to open a public hearing and close the public hearing, and then we can continue discussion. But at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against agenda item 5D? Recognizing no one stepped forward in the room, we'll close the public hearing and we'll continue discussion. Okay, any questions of what the intent is here? How we're going about satisfying it? There's no discussion. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to City Council establish an I-35 overlay district pursuant to adding section 3.6.2 to chapter 14 zoning of the Haslett City Council Code of Ordinance.
Okay, there's a motion to recommend approval as written. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion been second. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, in your packet, there is a status of development project exhibit, and it's very well completed. So if you have an interest in knowing how things are progressing with projects that we've approved, that's a great way to get updated. We don't need agenda item 5.7. We've already talked briefly about future agenda items. Anything else that we need to be aware of at this time?
No, sir.
Any workshop topics that we should plan for, you know, in the rest of the remaining calendar year we have?
We are looking at a couple things. You know, when we put the master land use plan together and also the thoroughfare plan, there's been just some little tweaks. We're just checking to see if we need to come back with a revision. We're not changing any of the land uses, just where maybe some thoroughfares where we adjusted a little bit after some conversations that we had with Hillwood at, you know, per the direction of this body. And we did that, but, you know, and we incorporated those. We're just checking to make sure we don't have to come back, but if we do, then we'll do that.
Okay, super. We're adjourned. The time